Hello there. We're about to get into what is, without a doubt, one of the most critical rules in Scottish personal injury law. It's a rule that doesn't bend, and if you get it wrong, the consequences are, well, they're severe. So if you or anyone you know has been injured, you really need to understand this. Right then, let's get straight into it.
Take a look at that. £0. That's exactly what even the most solid, open and shut personal injury claim is worth if you miss the legal deadline to start a court action in Scotland. Nothing. Not a single penny. It's a really tough reality of our legal system.
And this quote here just says it all, doesn't it? It honestly doesn't matter how serious your injury was or how clear it is that someone else was to blame. If that time limit runs out, your right to any compensation is, for all intents and purposes, gone. Just like that.
Okay, let's break down this hard deadline. So where does it even come from? Well, it's not just some random rule. It's written into law in an act of the Scottish Parliament. The Prescription and Limitation Scotland Act, 1973. That's the piece of legislation that sets this whole clock in motion.
Now, I know I'm repeating myself, but it's for a very good reason. Getting your head around how this 3-year rule works is absolutely fundamental to protecting your rights if you've been hurt. Seriously, this is the very first hurdle that any claim has to get over.
So the crucial question, the one you're probably asking is, when does this 3-year countdown actually start? Well, for a lot of common accidents, the answer is pretty straightforward.
This timeline here shows it nice and clearly. For the majority of cases, things like a car crash, a slip at the supermarket, or an accident at your work, the clock starts ticking on the exact day it happened. So say your accident was on the 1st of March 2023. Well, your deadline to get that court action started is the 1st of March 2026. It's as simple and as strict as that.
Now listen up, because this is the bit that catches so many people out. A lot of people think, oh, I've got a lawyer, or the insurance company is talking to me, so it's all fine. It's not. The clock is still ticking. The only thing that officially stops that clock is lodging a case in court. Anything else? It's just talk. It doesn't protect you. But, of course, life isn't always that simple, is it? The law does get that. Sometimes you might not realize you've been injured right away, or you might not know who's responsible. So let's have a look at some really important exceptions to this rule. This is such an important question. What happens in those situations where an injury isn't obvious from day one? You could be thinking of illnesses that take years and years to show up. Well, the law has a mechanism for this, and it's called the date of knowledge test. And this WE diagram explains it perfectly. Your 3-year clock doesn't start ticking until you knew or, and this is key, could reasonably have been expected to know all 3 of these things. First, that your injury was significant. Second, that it was caused by what someone did or failed to do. And third, who that person or company actually was. All 3 pieces of that puzzle have to be in place before the clock begins.
This date of knowledge rule is an absolute lifeline for cases like industrial diseases. Think about it. Someone who was exposed to asbestos in the shipyards back in the 70s but only gets diagnosed with an illness today, well, they can still make a claim. Their clock didn't start all those decades ago. It only started when they got that diagnosis and could connect it back to their old job. The law also has a really vital safeguard for children. It understands that a child can't bring a claim for themselves, so it basically puts the whole 3-year countdown on pause. For anyone who was injured when they were a child, that clock doesn't even start to tick until the day they turn 16.
And this timeline just shows you how that works. Say a child is hurt in an accident when they're 5 years old. The 3-year deadline doesn't run out when they turn 8. No, the clock only starts on their 16th birthday, which means they have right up until their 19th birthday to get a court action raised.
So, what happens if you have missed the deadline? Is that it? Is there any hope at all? Well, there is a very, very narrow safety net, but I really have to stress just how rarely a court will use it.
It all comes down to a wee bit of legal detail. In Scotland, personal injury claims are subject to what's called limitation, not prescription. So what does that mean? Well, limitation just bars the court action. The right to claim still technically exists. Because of that, a court has the power or discretion to allow a late claim. If it was prescription, the right itself would be wiped out completely and there'd be no way back.
But let me be absolutely crystal clear on this. This is not some kind of get-out-of-jail-free card. A court will only use this power in truly exceptional situations. It is not something you can or should ever rely on. Think of it as a last resort that fails far more often than it succeeds.
Right, we've gone through the rules, the exceptions, and all the risks. So let's move on to the most important bit, what you should be doing right now to protect yourself and your right to claim.
Okay, here's your action plan. First, figure out your deadline, as soon as you can. Second, and this is the big one, get in touch with the specialist Scottish solicitor straight away. Don't put it off. Don't think, oh, I'll wait till my treatment's done. Just getting some initial advice doesn't cost anything, and it's the only way to be 100% sure your rights are safe.
We're going to finish up with this quote because it really does say everything you need to know. The consequence of being late isn't a smaller payout, it's not a slap on the wrist. The consequence, in almost every single case, is that you lose your right to claim anything at all. So I'll just leave you with this final question. This isn't just some abstract legal theory. It's a real clock, and it could be ticking down on your own rights as we speak. So the most important thing to take away from all of this is to find out what your deadline is and make sure you act well before it arrives.